Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us for one of our HFA webinars. I'm Mark Schumacher, the CEO of the Home Furnishings Association. It's always my pleasure to host these webinars because I learn a lot. I know you're going to have a ton of takeaways from this webinar, and that's what I just think makes these so powerful. It's also why you can find every one of our webinars on our HFA, myhfa.org/webinar. That's the space on our website where you will find essentially a library of all of these webinars. And we highly recommend you go there, you find the subject you're looking for, and I'm going to tell you, you're going to have an hour of really great content when you go there. Today, however, we are talking about developing successful sales teams. Wow, is that something that is consistently important, but boy, now more than ever with just a very uneven year that we're having. So before I introduce our guests, I just want to mention to you that on the right side of your screen here on WebEx, you will find a little box that says chat. If you have any additional questions, please enter them in there and we will do our best to get to them. We also have a ton of questions that you have presented ahead of time when you registered that we're going to get to as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce our panel. It's my pleasure to introduce first and foremost Sydney Harris. She's the Organizational Development Director for Furnitureland South. If you don't know about Furnitureland South and you don't know about the largest single retail location, 1.3 million square feet, I know this because they're down the road. And Sydney makes sure that I know exactly all about it. We want to thank you, Sydney, for being here, and you've been great on previous webinars. I know this is going to be just another stellar one as well. And then also joining us, we have Rob Ball and Matt Pridemore. Now, Matt and Rob share some commonalities. First and foremost, they are franchise owners of Badcock furniture stores, Badcock and more, and they are also two young men who are very steeped in sales and sales development. As a matter of fact, they are part of our new program here that we're going to be talking about and connecting you to a little bit later, but our HFA Sales Academy. So guys, pleasure having you here and your expertise as well. So thank you so much for joining us. But I want to start out because in looking at the questions that came in, one of the things that I found really interesting is there are a lot of folks out there, a lot of retailers out there asking the question of, are things honestly different right now when it comes to training your sales team, what the sales team needs to know and do, or is it really just been kind of the meat and potatoes, it's the way it's always been? So Sydney, I'm going to start with you. Are there differences now that you as a sales trainer need to be aware of and trained to at this point?
Yeah, that's a great question, and thanks for having me, Mark. I'm happy to be here. So I think for us, what we've experienced over the last couple of years has just been rapid fire, right? Sales have been crazy. Customer demand has been so high. So over the last 6 months, really, we've been trying to focus back on the basics of sales training. When there's not as much volume coming in, not as much customers walking through the door, going back to the basics of things like follow-up, of things like sales acumen training, product training, vendor training. Now that market is back in full swing, there's products that are coming out that are new that we need to train our folks on. So I would say, especially over the last few months as a sales trainer, we're focusing a lot more on kind of the basics as opposed to just kind of dealing with the consumer demand that we've been experiencing.
Wow, you said something we haven't heard a lot in the last 2.5 years. New products? What? Really? Is that no, I mean, doesn't that feel good? I mean, yeah, the supply chain is at least moving a lot better than it was, but yeah, it's wonderful that we can talk about a lot more new products. Rob, I'm going to kick it to you. What are your thoughts as well, as far as, is there anything different right now in this current environment, or is it just still sort of the same old basics of what you need to do?
No, it's a phenomenal question. I don't think it could be any more different. I think the entire world has changed substantially. And, one thing that we preach in our stores, and I'm sure that Sydney saw it in her business as well, the Great Resignation hit us too. And, we had a lot of people that were, long-term tenured, sales associates that really understood the furniture game, the features and benefits, the financing, in order to create a relationship with the customer and all those things and how important they were. And, we did lose some of that. And I think that resignation brought in a newer, greener sales force onto our sales team. And so, we're taking for granted all the people that have been there for 15 and 20 years and what they knew. And now we have this person that's been there for 6 months, and we have to realize, hey, listen, it's a completely different ballgame. We have to instill those, core values and principles into those individuals, and of course, start education from the very, very beginning. So it could not be more different.
Interesting. And so you're really agreeing with Sydney on the standpoint that this not only is this now, in her words, which I thought was great, a great opportunity with sales being a little flatter to focus on these basics, but now I hear you saying that those are more and more important just because of the tenure of your teams. So I love hearing that. Matt, I want to get you to work into this as well, because it's interesting, and I know we're not going to really hit this subject today as we're talking, truly about training successful teams. But boy, another subject for another day is sales succession. One of the things I learned over the last 2.5 years was, the days of bragging about, wow, I've got 5 people on my sales floor who have 20 plus years. Now it's kind of like, darn it, I've got 4 people on my floor with 20 plus years. If I lose one of them, where am I? And so this is a big part of that. Matt, what are your thoughts about the sales training focus today, where we are as far as 2022 and these post COVID situations?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I think to kind of snowball on what Sydney and Rob have talked about is that when the whole pandemic started, what we saw, what we felt was, this mass flood of people coming in that were having to sit inside their homes for days on end, and they were just trying to get out of the house. And so when they we've got so many of those customers that maybe they weren't really looking to buy when they came in. They wanted to get out of the house. They wanted to go somewhere. And I think the difference today is we do have less traffic coming in the door, like Sydney said, but the people that are coming in are ready to buy. And I think the important part there is for us to make sure that we're closing those people, that we're closing those sales, we're asking for the sale. And that's the piece of the training that I think kind of got left out a couple of years ago, is we didn't really have to ask for the sale. They were coming in, they were ready to buy, those type things. And that transition there is, we've got to make sure we're asking for the sale, we're closing the sale. Those sales tactics that might seem like basics to us, but we've got to get to those basics and make sure they're heard.
It's really funny. I just kind of wrote this down. You talked about people coming in are ready to buy, so our teams need to be ready to sell. And I think that may be kind of a way to sort of flip that around. There's so many places we can go here to start, and this one just kind of hit me off the bat before we even talk about some of the specific things you want to train folks in. There's people that are asking the question, and I get this from a business owner. They're saying when. So I would love to get from the three of you, how do you, whatever it is you're training, we're going to get to that in a second. How do you blend the need for it with the schedule in the day? And I mean, when do you decide the best time to do it? Because it seems to me like a lot of people are struggling with that. Go ahead, Sydney.
Do you mean specifically like when product is going to come in, or more on the
really more when within the day, their schedule? How do you manage that piece of it first? It's one thing to train, but when do you choose those moments? Help people out as far as before we even talk about all the what. Let's talk about the when.
Yeah. So as far as our training schedules, we start out our week every single week on Monday with a sales meeting for our entire team. So it's our sales team, it's our executive staff, any updates, whether it's from operations, and that's really kind of more of a town hall setting where we give updates from the team, from the merchandising team, like I said, from our operations team, and then we have a vendor in. So there's an element of product training, but that happens at 8:30 on Monday mornings, and then we really try to focus our trainings first thing in the morning or in the afternoon, right before people are kind of wrapping up their day. So Early morning, we feel like that's a really good time. People are getting their day started. It's top of mind if they're going to go right out on the floor after that and start working with guests. And then things that they're wrapping up, like post-sale things that they might have to get involved in, we're focusing those more towards the end of the day as they're wrapping up and going back, kind of ending their day.
So Matt, talk about the purposefulness of that too, because this is from really talking to the business owners that are watching this and everything, is that this is their commitment. They need to commit to to a program like this. What are your thoughts about what Sydney said and about what you've seen as being a successful time frame?
Yeah, it's to piggyback on what she's saying is, early in the mornings, getting that training in and making sure that we are consistent with it. I think consistency is such a big key there, that it's not, one day a week that we're popping in and saying, training is not something we did, it's something we constantly do. And having a time set aside for that each day that we're getting in, we're using that training. And then statistics show that if you train and then you pop that first up and you sell that first up in the morning, you're a lot more a lot better probabilities that the second sale that come in, you're going to sell that one, the third, the fourth, because you've gotten the training in, and then you felt the repetitive, you felt the wins early in the morning. And I think it's good. Your body understands wins, and whether it's a really, really, really small win, from your brain's perspective. Does that make sense? Maybe Rob?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one thing that I kind of wanted to say was, it's identifying how important is training to you and your organization, right? For us, training is just as important as breathing in our organization. And so, I said this recently at another conference that I was attending. We spend millions, literally millions of dollars marketing to our customers, and a lot of organizations spend very little on what our sales associates do once those customers get there. And so I went through an exercise with some leaders in our business and some leaders in some other furniture companies called the value chain. Mark, are you familiar with the value chain?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That exercise?
I am.
And so when the value chain basically was evaluating the touch points that leadership has, and even your managers have, with all of their subordinates, all the sales associates that are underneath that. And a lot of these business owners recognize that they had maybe 1 or 2 touch points a year with their leadership, and those managers only had 4 or 5 touch points with their sales associates. And so you have to schedule this, and you have to rank it in level of importance in your, kind of your strategy as a company. And so for us, marketing is certainly up there, but right next to it is sales training and making it a priority. And so what Sydney said in our organization is paramount. It starts in the morning every single day, because at the end of the day, sales is a transfer of emotion. And we all know that sales associate that walks through the door, and that customer walks in, or excuse me, sales associate walks in, and we know when they're in a bad mood right away, right? How are they going to influence that customer if they're in a bad mood? We know that they're not going to have any success. And so what Matt said is so pivotal. We know if a sales associate starts off the day with a sale or a win, that they're going to transfer that winning emotion to every single customer throughout the day. And it's up to our leaders, it's up to our managers, it's up to our ownership to make sure we are the ones that are setting the pace and the tone for those people. And it's our responsibility, and you have to take extreme ownership of it. So every single day, every single morning, it is the responsibility of leadership to start with some type of training.
I love that, and because the reason why this question just really resonated with me is because if you as the business leader aren't committed to it by scheduling these things, that too is going to sort of be the ripple effect going out. People are going to say, well, it's not that important because they're not putting a premium on it. You're saying make sure, all of you are saying make sure that this is what we're committing to, and I think that's great. So let's talk about these basic skills, Sydney, that you're really focusing on now when you get this chance with a little bit of downtime. So what are the 2 or 3 things that are absolute musts? And they may sound obvious to some people, but what are you emphasizing when we talk about this kind of back to basics, making sure everybody is really solid?
Yeah, so we, a couple years ago, we kind of sat down as a leadership and management team and thought of an acronym for kind of what we were going to do for our training program. And everything we do is centered around this. So as cheesy as it sounds, the acronym, right? It's CREATE, C-R-E-A-T-E. So we talk about charm, we talk about recommending, enthusiasm, selling with enthusiasm, asking the right questions, time, saving customers time, saving our employees time, and then earn. So the follow up and the kind of back end process of that. So that's kind of our philosophy as a sales team. So whenever we're bringing content, whether it's vendor training, sales acumen training, systems training on how we follow up and what the specifics are of that, everything we do kind of lives in that model. And it makes it easy because there's a specific thing we're trying to accomplish in every sales training that we do. Everything we do falls under one of those letters, one of those 5 letters that we are training to. So that's kind of how we organize it. And then one thing that's been super helpful for us especially over the last couple of years, is setting the expectation for whoever's coming in to do the sales training, whether it's me, whether it's our other sales trainer, whether it's a manager, whether it's a vendor, giving them very specific guidelines on what they need to train on. Because unfortunately, you said it the best, Rob, they're getting in there in the morning. We've got to set the tone for the day. We've got to set that kind of standard for what's going to follow. Productivity too. Somebody comes in there, they spend the first couple hours of their day doing something else, then their productivity is shot for the rest of the day. So we bring them in, whoever's speaking to our team, they know they've got to keep it short and sweet and to the point of whatever they're doing. Because salespeople, they're moving and shaking. They're trying to get that first sale, they're trying to get that second sale for the day. So the content's got to be short and sweet, and you've got to have a very clear directive of what you're trying to accomplish from that specific training that day.
You're talking to somebody who loves cheesy acronyms, so you nailed me on that one. But no, but what I love about that is you had to step back. You and your, the team had to step back, and there's also a prioritization there. And Rob, I want to go to you next because you talked about this a second ago. I find it interesting. The first thing is charm, and you talked about that attitude. We're talking about that's really the soft skill part of this. But it is a starting point. So how do you train to that? So let's use your example. You got a salesperson that walks in the door and you just know, wow, Charlie's in a rough mood today. How do you manage to that? Because you want that, I call it the positive mojo. You want him on the floor. You want him nailing that first one because it's going to be that snowball thing. So talk us through that. How do you manage to that?
So it's a phenomenal question, and it's difficult, right? Because everybody is motivated by something that's going to be a little bit different than the next person. And so one thing that we've done in some of our organizations, and this is up to the leadership, as the owner of the business, if you're a multi-unit operator, I have 100 sales associates working on your sales floor, it's important to make this a priority for you as the business owner, to have your sales associates create a dream board. And on that dream board, they will put something that's on there that motivates them. Maybe it's their family, maybe it's a cruise, maybe it's a car, maybe it's getting out of debt, maybe it's getting in debt, whatever it is, right? They're gonna let you know through that dream board what's motivating them. And I think that it's important for us to remember their why, right? Simon Sinek's phenomenal book. I mean, he's one of my favorite speakers. Know your why. And so what we try to do, and it's not perfect, but what we try to do as leaders is relate everything back to their why, very specific and very personal to them. Because, in our organization, and I'm sure everybody else that's watching this, our sales associates are the lifeblood of our company. We can't do anything without them. Same thing with our delivery and warehouse help. Can't do anything without them. We can do a lot without marketing. We can't do anything at all without our sales associates and our delivery teams. And so they're the most important person in our business outside of the customer. And so I always relate it back to their why, and I try to make it as personal as possible and reminding them, hey, listen, you're here for much more than just a paycheck. You're here for much more than just making a sales goal, right? My sales goals are great, and that's wonderful for me to achieve. But what does it mean for you? Does it mean that your kids get to go to private school that you've always wanted to send them to? Does that mean that you get to buy your first home or your second home or your vacation home, or achieve some type of goals or dreams? And so it's much more personal than just hitting a sales goal. It's relating it back to their why specifically, and training our leadership to make sure that they understand that that's their job.
So Matt, let me bring you into this. So we're just calling him Charlie. I don't know Charlie specifically in this instance, but so if somebody does walk in the door and that they're just not themselves at that moment, how do you broach that? I mean, Rob talks about coming at it with a lot of previous knowledge, et cetera, but how would you manage to that as well? Oh,
Sure. For me, a key word oh, is that better?
We got your audio now. Go for it.
Okay. Yep. So for myself, a key word for me is empathy, of understanding that there are key outside factors that are driving why they came in, maybe in a sour mood, or that they're just not on their game, so to speak. And I think trying to understand where they came from, what was going on from the outside, and figure out a way to turn that into a positive, and understanding, not just going directly to a write-up form if they're not doing what you're asking of them, or but understanding from an empathetic side. I think that's a key word for me, and helping them to understand that we are here to create raving fans. We're not just here to create a happy customer. We want somebody that's going to be so excited about coming into our store that they're going to go out like, I love the term charm, and as she went down the whole create word, I'm like, that helps create a raving fan. That helps create a raving fan. Every bit of that is what we're trying to do, but understanding that, trying to get the outside forces out of it. And I think that's by creating an environment to help them thrive. And if it's a negative environment that they walk into, and it's a negative environment that they came from, it's not going to work. And so understanding, helping move them from that negative environment into the positive, by being empathetic and understanding.
Totally get it. Awesome. And before we go too far, we've already gotten some folks are cranking questions in here, which I love to see. Before we go too far off of the first few things we've talked about, and I'm going to just toss this one out as a as a jump ball here. How do you handle everyday meetings when the staff comes in at different times? Who wants to take that one?
I'll be glad to hop in there. So number one, the tone, it's a great question, right? But the tone is set in the beginning of the day, just like Sydney said before. It's set in the beginning of the day. And so what we typically do, if you have multiple sales associates coming in different shifts, you will have an A meeting and a B meeting. But the A meeting is really the most important one, because as those new sales associates are coming in at, let's just say noontime, one time, whatever it is, they're going to see and feel the energy of the people that are in that space. And that alone is going to pay you some dividends. So it's very important that you spend the time to craft a very good, well thought out meeting and make it personal to them, right? And just kind of going back to what we were talking about before for a second. Sorry, hopefully everybody can still see me there.
Yep.
You're having a meeting to check a box and to make your dealer or the owner of the business happy, that's not going to be impactful, right? You got to see the opportunity in this instead of the obligation, right? And so make sure you guys are relating it back to something very specific that wants to be achieved for that day, and put some type of measurable statistic behind it. And then that communication will be so much easier halfway through the day, because now you have something. If you want to do $100,000 for the day in your store, or $10,000 for the day, doesn't matter what it is, you can tell them, hey, listen, we're already 40% to the goal. It's time for you guys to pick up the boat and let's go ahead and run, right? Let's go to the shoreline. And so now they know that there's some type of common goal to work toward, and that some of the heavy lifting was already done, or we really need to get press forward because we didn't do any of it in the morning. And so,
Okay.
So anyway, that's my.
I appreciate that. I'd like to go for some other really great questions here, and I want to go to motivation, because there were a lot of questions relating to motivation. And Sydney, I want to start with you on this one. So it says here, the question is how to inspire salespeople so they don't become complacent. How would you answer that?
Yeah, I love what both Matt and Rob talked about as far as what's your why. We talk a lot about that. Why? What other than that paycheck are you here to accomplish? What do you want? So I think there are a lot of people that are self-motivating as salespeople, especially commission sales associates. They're going to have a lot of that kind of on their own, but I think you can make it really fun. So like one thing that we do that's small, and there were a lot of good questions that were sent in about this too, is like different benchmarks for different category sales. So we have fun with that and give small prizes, if you will, for hitting certain benchmarks as it relates to categories. We also try to celebrate big, whether it's an associate's first time over 100,000 for a month, they get a little plaque with their name on it and their month and what day that was, all the way to kind of our end of the year award ceremony. And our team loves that. You would think, everybody's so busy, they don't want to do anything after work. They're at work with these people all day. They don't want to kind of celebrate after, but we have so much fun just getting together. Everyone brings their spouse or partner or a friend and gets to kind of celebrate as a team for the accomplishments of the year. And throughout the year, we're talking about that. What is the next group? Are you going to be in the $1 Million Club, the $1.5 Million Club? So we talk about that and make it part of our routine as far as like a goal to get to kind of at the end. And then as far as day-to-day motivation, I think just really keeping it positive and keeping it really relevant to what's going on. And I mentioned our Monday sales meetings, we kind of had to rethink our strategy because we didn't want it to be, to Rob's point, just something that we check a box on every week. We wanted it to stay extremely relevant and timely. So we do our best to get out of there on time and bring content that's relevant. It's what's going on. Whether it's good news or bad news. Over the last couple of years, we've had to talk about some things that aren't always fun: surcharges, tariffs, delays, and how to address that with the customer. And you got to hit that stuff head on, because there's nothing that's going to kill motivation more than us giving our team a bunch of fluff when we're not talking about what's really going on in the industry. So keeping it relevant, to the point, and timely is, I think, really big in motivation for somebody that's a commissioned associate.
Sydney, one quick follow-up. You mentioned about the benchmarks and little prizes and little rewards and that sort of thing. And you talked about it via categories. Is this also an effective way to get the team to buy in to obviously what is the higher level strategies, which is we want to push this category, or we're looking to boost these categories? Is this also a way not just giving them the sales motivation, but also tying that in a way that's also really moving you toward the company goals? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and there are easy things that I'm sure any retailer would have categories set up on: volume based on tenure, how long they've been there, mattress, rugs, protection, and then our outlet center. So stock product that we have.
Appreciate that. And so to kind of move this a little bit forward, Matt, let me throw this one to you, because it's a similar question. So this just says, how to keep my sales staff pumped up, hungry for sales, and motivated. So what are the things that you think are a couple of key ways to do that? Because we've already talked about it, heavily here, that attitude is where everything starts.
Sure, and great questions. And for me and our organization, I saw about 5 years ago where this small trend started to happen, where a lot of sales associates, yes, they're money motivated. We all are in different ways, but I saw this from the younger, that 20 to 30s crowd of what impact are they making on society? What impact are they making on other people? And so we try, we kind of push towards that a little bit with kind of a service oriented, like, if we are hitting our goals enough, let's also get out and be of service to the Boys and Girls Clubs, to the YMCAs, to the, to as a team, go be part of that, not to just sponsor, an event, but go out and be part of that event together. And from a motivation standpoint, everybody feels that impact when we do go out. And from a motivation standpoint, I think it comes from, they're all looking for growth in some way. It's not, I don't think it's not just a title that they're looking for, but what kind of growth, or, what are they learning that can help them for tomorrow, for the next month, for the next year. And that has to come from leadership, and that has to come from a constant, the leadership within the leadership that surrounds me. They have to be on such a personal level, to Rob's point and Sydney's, is for my people to be in a leadership capacity, to understand their people on a very personal level, because they're all driven by different things. But that motivation has to be a daily, consistent piece to the puzzle of, coaching and being part of something bigger than themselves.
Well, and what you just described is not only individual motivation, but what you're talking about too is a really great team building piece of it too, and also tying it to the culture of your company. What are those social areas, those corporate responsibility areas that are important. So that's really cool. I mean, you're talking about tying them to the DNA of the company, to tying them to each other. So I mean, there's a lot of good stuff there. And Rob, I'm going to say this one tongue in cheek because I think you can flip this backwards and make this actually a really good question. But I like this one. It said, "How to motivate and be nice." So I don't know where that came from. Whoever asked that question, I'm just like, wow, there's some issues there. But flip that around for a second, because really what I think you've said this, and this will kind of wrap this little quick section into a bow, is that you have to know the why. You got to connect. So it seems to me there's no way you can motivate a sales team in this kind of an environment with a big stick in the other hand. Obviously, KPIs are important, benchmarks are, I'm not saying that, but also there's something to be said for that heavy-handedness that maybe that a lot of people might utilize, not being a great starting point.
Yeah, I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan, and he always says, you don't want to close your eyes and say there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, and then open your eyes and then there's weeds, right? And so sometimes you have to plug the weed out. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have somebody that's on your team and you've tried everything, and you've used the carrot and the stick, so to speak, unfortunately, some people are not meant for this business, are not meant for sales, and that's okay. One thing that I can say is that if you keep somebody on board experiencing no success for too long, you're really doing them a disservice. You're doing your business a disservice. You're doing your community a disservice. You want to find people that are really wanting to be a part of this and wanting to experience success. And sometimes moving somebody along is the best thing for them, because they'll find success somewhere else, and that's okay too, right? Because we're trainers and we rank training extremely high in our organization, and so finding somebody that has no experience is no problem for us, because we're trainers. We're going to bring them up to speed, and we're going to find the culture that we want to have. And sometimes our culture isn't for everybody, and that's okay too.
I did not expect that you were going to take it that way, but it's a wonderful point too, that as you're doing all of this, fit is a key word here. And the last thing that you want to be doing is investing a ton of money in anyone who's clearly not a fit, and that's not fair to them. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to the company. So
Yeah.
Through this this high touch kind of this training, you're also talking about really discerning those that really do fit in what they're doing at that point. So I like that a lot. I want to get into some other questions here, because I think there's just some great stuff here as we continue to talk about developing successful sales teams here. So this is an interesting nuance. What are some approaches to turn sales teams from order takers to consultants? And I'm going to start with Sydney, because at Furnitureland South, they are called design consultants, because they're not called retail sales associates, but that's what they're called. And so Sydney, I know that this is a big part of the consultative model for you. So what do those approaches look like for people out there that are wanting their teams to be more consultative?
Yeah, so for us, and you hit the nail on the head, the reason we changed the name was because everything follows that, right? What they're actually called, what their job description says. They're consulting. At the end of the day, yes, they're salespeople. That's why it's sales and design consultant. But what we wanted was the associate to feel like they had a sense of, okay, I'm not just selling. I am involved in the decision-making process, in the process of helping them design their space. I'm involved in that, and then I'm also the order taker, to use the word that was used in the question. But I think a big part of it is training them so that they're confident enough to actually be the consultant. So for us, we have a huge onboarding process of how we're actually training them before they even are trained on how to take an order, to put it in the system. They're trained on how to greet a customer. So even just stuff like that, of get out of the you're just here to take an order. You're here to develop a relationship with that customer first and foremost. It starts from the second they walk in the door, the second they chat online or message in. So really how you set the tone at the very beginning of whatever kind of onboarding you do, that's how you're going to set it. Is, all right, what are we going to focus on first? We're going to focus on that charm aspect. We're going to focus on getting to know the person, getting to know the project, and then digging into, okay, what are they looking for? Qualifying the customer, talking about product. Because at that point, you've got to do a lot of before work before you can actually get to the order taking process, especially now. And for us, typically people are coming in for more than just one item. So you have to have that more of a consultation process of asking a lot of good questions and qualifying that customer. But I think training the person to be confident in that side of it is more than half the battle, is making sure if they say, well, is this going to fit in my space? Have we trained them to be able to say confidently, yes, your room's 10 by 12, this 108-inch sofa is going to fit, or not? So
Oops, and Sydney froze there for a second. Sid, you froze for a
really,
second. I'm going to pause. We'll get back to her in a second. Rob and Matt, I want to ask you.
to be able to provide.
Oh,
Yeah, Sydney, you're cutting in and out. I'm gonna let your signal get a
At
little
that
bit
next
better.
level, so that they're not just an order taker. They can be confident enough to say, yeah, those throw pillows don't match the body cloth at all. That.
Okay. Rob and Matt, let me ask you this. Now, Sydney's situation there is they've got 150 design consultants. They've got a big staff. We know that Badcock stores are designed a little bit differently. You have smaller staffs. They have to be agile. So how do you guys answer that question as far as, turning your team from order takers to consultants? Do either one of you want to jump in on that initially?
yeah, I'll jump in there, and I'm sure Rob can kind of piggyback because we do have a lot of the same type ideas. But my mindset has been for years that there are two different avenues to take, and I think sales associates try to sell furniture, and consultants ask questions. And I think kind of from what Sydney was saying, when somebody walks through our front door, yes, we're going to greet them and ask what room they're looking to decorate, or or redecorate, or something like that. But as soon as someone says, hey, I'm looking for living room, typically sales associates say, okay, let me show you some living rooms, and start towards a promotionally minded, let me show you what's on sale, let me show you what I think is pretty, let me think, let me show you what I like. And a consultant would be on the other side, would probably sit down at a table and take 10 or 15 minutes and say, okay, what colors are you looking for? What kind of budget do you have in mind? What kind of space are you trying to fit your living room into? Are you looking to finance or pay cash? And get all these together and get some ideas together. And once you've figured out where they're coming from and what they're looking to do, then you're able to go to, by the time you've asked 10 or 15 good questions, you've got it narrowed down to, within your store, what kind of frames you've got that you think might fit, what kind of colors they might like, and you've become a consultant and you're not a sales associate. And that's how simple that is by asking questions instead of selling furniture. Rob?
Yeah, so everything you guys are saying, I'm 1,000% on board with. I think a helpful exercise for a lot of you out there that maybe tuning in asking the same question is to define the difference, right? It's a little exercise you can do, and you can literally write on a sheet of paper and divide it in two. What's an order taker look like? What's the activities of an order taker? What's an activity of a consultant or a true professional? Because I know I have sales associates all day long that'll have a big sales day and they'll be high-fiving and they'll have tickets with bedroom sets on it, headboard, footboard, rails, dresser, mirror, and they'll be high-fiving each other about it. And I'm like, I understand, and congratulations, we were able to bridge the gap there, but the advertising did that sale. And I don't mean to be crass when I say that. I want them to feel that level of success, but at the end of the day, it's the unadvertised items that our sales associates are there to convert, and the warranties. And so you define the difference between the two, and then you have very measurable KPIs to say, hey, listen, here's what you should be doing, and let's define what a true professional, sales consultant's KPIs look like, so they know what to strive for. But if we're putting them in our stores, we're not training them, we're not giving them the North Star to shoot for, and they're doing the bare minimum, they feel like they're experiencing success, then yeah, of course we're going to have order takers on our floor. But it's through true definition and through KPIs that you're going to start bridging the gap and getting that performance to a different level.
And I think it goes without saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but to me also the difference between order takers and consultants is consultants know how to grow tickets.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the other part of it too. What Matt was talking about a second ago, those questions can lead you all kinds of places. And I think just the order taking is just, you're just being so transactional that you're missing tons of opportunities. One thing that Sydney said, and Sydney, I'll jump back to you here, because this is also something really, really key, is, you talked about them having the ability to have confidence because of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that a lot of the sales training is about technique. It's about this. It's about discovering, asking questions. But let's talk about, how do you manage, and I'm going to ask the guys the same thing, how do you manage the knowledge piece? Because, you talked about incentives and categories. Well, they have to have, some good knowledge in these categories. So how do you do that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so we kind of divide up our training process into 3 buckets. So we've got the onboarding, the new hire training, and then continued education, so the processes and the actual sales things, and then the vendor and product training is the 3rd kind of bucket. So I think with that, giving them the knowledge to be able to sell it with confidence really is giving them just enough so that they're dangerous at first, and then giving them the opportunity to grow upon that. Because it's sales, right? You got to it's a little bit of fake it till you make it at the beginning, especially for a store like us where we've got 1,000 different manufacturers. So how in the world can you possibly know everything about everybody? So we bank on what we teach them in the first 3 weeks. About 50% of that, maybe if we're lucky, they'll retain. And that's why we focus a lot on the processes and sales acumen at the beginning. The product knowledge is going to come slowly but surely. And then we try to just mix it up. I might do some product trainings. Our vendors might do some product trainings. We'll have them go to visit factories where the product is actually made. We're very fortunate to be in North Carolina, right up the road from Hickory, where a lot of our brands are still manufacturing product. But that's another way. Just get them in factories, let them see hands-on. And now it's so easy to show through video and to establish quality and things like that through video as well. So I would try to mix up how you're presenting the training, let it come from a lot of different voices, and then don't overwhelm them with too much information. Like at the end of the day, 8-way hand tie is 8-way hand tie, a box spring, a spring down cushion. It's not, we're not doing anything crazy different. So giving them enough knowledge that they're dangerous, and then the opportunity for them to dig deeper into what they want to do. Like if you're trying to develop as a design consultant and you need them to learn high end, okay, well now you've got a very focused training, right? You take your top brands, the most high end that you have, and give them very specific training on that. That's when you're really different. You talk about the difference between a consultant and order taker. Having somebody that can sell quality to that extent, that's a lot different. That's the whole next level, and that's going to require more training. But that goes back to motivation too, right? They're motivated to sell that, to really grow that ticket, to sell that higher end product. They're going to be motivated to learn about it.
And Rob and Matt, any final thoughts there about the whole knowledge piece? Because Sydney's really kind of telling a cautionary tale there of knowledge is good, just not too much and too fast. You don't want to fire hose your team to just overwhelm them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, I think you got to give them a little bit of enough to be dangerous. I think that's what you said. It's perfect. One thing that we say in our organization is competency equals confidence. and you need confidence to transfer the right emotion, right? And so in order for our sales associates to get out there with confidence, they have to understand their product, they have to understand their finance programs, they have to understand who they are as a brand and what they're trying to accomplish. And sales is all about assurances, right? Assuring the customer's making the right call, giving that customer a certain level of certainty. And, yes, you can do that with motivation alone to a small degree, but eventually that motivation runs out, and you're going to need to fill that motivation with confidence through what you've learned through all your product knowledge, et cetera. And so, I think it's very important to understand your brand, what you have to offer, your product, find those commonality between, multiple different brands. So, for the most part, a sofa is made very similar to another sofa, right? The mechanisms are going to be made for the most part in the same places. The wood, for the most part, it's going to be a veneer, it's going to be the same stuff. And so give them enough to be dangerous and to give them the confidence to get on that sales floor and to transfer that emotion of certainty and confidence to that customer. And that's going to help them, that's going to certainly help bridge the gap.
Okay, super helpful. Matt, any thoughts on that before we move
Yeah,
on?
I'll jump on that for just a moment. One thing for me is for the people that are watching today to understand that your customers and your potential customers are walking in your front doors already more knowledgeable than some of the people that are on your floors. And the reason is they have gone on and they have Googled this information. I mean, let's be real. They have Googled this information. They have gone to your website. They have flipped through the pictures, and under the pictures, there are little blurbs pretty much, any furniture store that you look at, there's some type of product knowledge that's under there. And so if you've got somebody that, fresh and green that's just walked onto your floor and you're like, oh, I don't even have training or I don't know what to do. The very, very basic thing is have your people log on to your website and be able to name the name. If you've got, different selections that have names, make sure they understand that the very, very basic, if somebody walks in and wants, throws a specific name, at least know a direction, at least know a resource to go. You're not going to have all the answers, but you've got to get your resource pool big enough that at least you can go find the right person that has the answer. I think that's the key there, is to, at least get up to where the knowledge level that your customers come.
Boy, and that's interesting because, it's back to what Sydney said about, initially you kind of fake it a little bit. You got to be careful because you could fake your way into just losing the confidence of that potential customer. I also I'm kind of going through this whole list of questions that have come in, and I think we need to kind of veer into this for a second. I know we talked about knowledge and product knowledge and that kind of thing, so that we talked about some real specifics here. But there was a question that came in about, teaching someone who's new in sales how to connect on a personal level to build trust with the customer. This is, once again, we're into a little softer skill kind of a situation here, but boy, super important. So let's see. I think Rob, I'll start with you on this one. So how do you help them connect in a meaningful way to build that trust with the customer, or as Matt likes to say, with your future raving fan?
Yeah. So, and you're speaking very specific to a new sales associate, correct?
Correct.
That question. Okay.
I'll get to the older experienced people in a minute. There's questions about that too, but we'll get to that in a sec.
It's okay to not know, right? I think that, be humble and let them know that you are new, right? I know sometimes new sales associates that have better experiences on the sales floor and even higher sales than your most seasoned sales associates, because they're selling with motivation. And sometimes they say, hey, listen, guys, I just don't know, but let's find out together. It's okay to not know, right? And work through it and just say, hey, listen, today's my first week, it's my first day, it's my first month, whatever it is. But whatever you're looking for, we have experts in the building, and I'm going to learn with you if that's okay. If not, if you'd like to work with a more seasoned sales associate, I'm happy to pass you along to somebody that has a little bit more knowledge and experience than I do, and I'll shadow them. It's okay to not know, but be humble about it and make sure you set that precedent up front with the customer.
Rob, that's a home run because I've read so many different experts have talked about the fact that we as human beings inherently want to help someone. And if someone starts that conversation out by saying, I'm new, that changes my whole approach as a customer, because I'm like, oh, okay, well, gosh, I don't want to beat this person up, or it's really interesting. And Sydney, I saw you just nodding like crazy. Jump in, because this is a really interesting point that Rob just made.
Yeah, so we strongly encourage our new people to partner with somebody that's going to be able to provide and kind of supplement that I don't know the answer to that moment. So there's a little bit of teamwork involved there. And for a new person, they get to decide who they want to work with. If I've got somebody that's kind of got the gift of gab and they're super connecting with the customer, but they have no product knowledge, pair with a veteran who's been there for 20 years, who knows everything there is to know about product knowledge. And that's where magic is created, right? Because the person's like, hey, I am new. This is my first week on the floor. Maybe it's their 8th week on the floor and they like the whatever. Obviously, we're not telling people to be not honest or anything like that at all, but you give people the opportunity to connect with someone that pairs to their strength, where or gives them compliments where they might have a weakness. And that's a really cool experience for everybody, for the customer, for the new person, for the more seasoned person. It's like a win-win-win, because you're getting to experience that emotion. And you said it, Rob, I wrote it down. Sales is a transfer of emotion, and that's so important. And we're so lucky in our industry that you talk about being personal. I mean, you're in someone's space, you're in their house. This is a very emotional purchase. And once you start asking them, hey, how do you want to feel in this space? This is your family room. What is your family like? You got kids? Are they in college? You got 5 dogs? What is this space supposed to feel like? And so it's easy to parallel emotion with what we're doing, because it's such an emotional, personal thing that's taking place.
And I have to tell you, I mean, when you talk about it like that, and you kind of gave me chills, because that's the beauty of this industry. If you're not motivated by connecting with someone and really doing something cool that you know that they're going to be looking at on a daily basis in their house, and it's going to really improve their environment. I mean, man, that's, what a great advantage that is, to be invited in, essentially. Even though they're coming into your store, they're inviting you into their space. I think it's fantastic. And there's what you all have just described is such a huge palette of possible questions and answers. It's not, oh, I'm going to ask these 3 things. You never know where that conversation is going to go. And I love that. And I also think, by the way, that's one of the things about the newbies out there, is that when you just at least let somebody know that you're new, also I think it puts you in not only a better position with them, but it also gives you a chance to really learn more, because I think you've opened some really, really great floodgates there. Matt, I'm going to give you the next problem question to be the person to try to answer this. How do I effectively coach sales teams when they are missing milestones?
Oh, I like it. Yeah. So goals, obviously, the industry is that's for leadership. That's, we're tracking data. We're going after goals. We're trying to hit all these type things. And it really rolls back to some of the things that we talked to probably 15 or 20 minutes ago, is that confidence factor. And, a big word for me is fear. And you have to be really careful when using the fear, because, fear cripples mindsets. Fear, it puts you in a place that you lack confidence. And, it gets to a point where your people just, they don't, you've got to get to where you've got to get them to follow you. You have to be the leader. You're getting them to follow you. And, using the confidence factor, building their confidence when they're not hitting the milestones, maybe breaking that down further. A lot of times leaders try to throw out these really big, vague, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. And sometimes those leaders put that elephant in front of a sales team and say, go get the elephant, and they don't give you any kind of instructions as to how we're going to eat that. And I think the big piece is for sales associates, when we're training, we're not going to go train for 2 or 3 hours and have somebody sit here and watch a video screen for hours and hours and hours. We've got, ADD with when it comes to that. We want to watch a 2 or 3 minute video, and then we want to go out on the floor and practice what that video told us to do. We want to get some wins under our belt. But go back to the basics. When you're not doing something, when you're not doing it right, get back to the basics really quick. And maybe you changed your greet a little bit and you didn't even realize it, but talking to the other associates that are out on the floor and being that team, that's the leader's job, is to create that team environment, the culture that is within that, and biting that elephant off one bite at a time, and putting that in front of your team to win at a high level.
I like that. That's also a trust builder too. I think there's some really great stuff there. Rob, I was going to circle this back to you since you kind of sort of dabbled into this a second ago. There's also a lot of questions about, and when I say older, let's just call them experienced, more experienced sales team members. You know, how to motivate them to want to keep learning. You know, some people that think that they kind of know all this stuff. You know, how to introduce new things when they might be more set in their ways. So let's talk, all of us here, about that, about motivating what I'll call your long-term sales associates, those that have been there a while, because it's a little bit different than the newbie coming in, you know, bright-eyed and wanting to just be a sponge.
So it's definitely more difficult, right? I mean, you know, that old saying is you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? I mean, it's an absolute reality that it's a little bit more of a struggle, but I think that if you start paying homage to where that person came from and put them in a position to influence the people around them, then they will remind themselves of some of the things that they learned. And so turn some of those mentors, some of those older sales associates that have been around, more experienced, more seasoned sales associates that have been around, into a trainer for you. And trust me, they will bring themselves back to the basics through reminding the new people what they did that brought them to the dance. And then you tell them and empower them to train them on some of the newer activities that you want them to be more proficient in. And trust me, through that empowerment, they will find a way to influence, because they want the people that are around them to succeed. Hopefully the good ones do, right? And so empower them to train other people on some of the things that maybe they're not so proficient in, so that way they can start developing that skill set.
And I think too, I think we're not just talking about longtime staff that's just sales. You know, for the smaller retailers that are watching this, you know, they might be that trainer as well, and it helps remind them why they got in the business, why they opened their store in the first place. Sydney?
Yeah, I think Rob nailed it. Give them the opportunity to help you with the training. And part of our training process is shadowing and mentoring. So you have to be with somebody. And we're very tactful on who we're going to put as the more tenured person with a new person. And we hope that, you know, after we've spent some time with the newer associate, we get somebody who plays strengths, weaknesses, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, give them a platform to teach someone who's coming up, to share that knowledge, and that they can learn together. And I think we've seen something interesting happen too with just technology and how far it's come lately. A lot of our more veteran associates, they want somebody to partner with them who can help them with that side. So there's opportunity for a lot of our newer, greener folks to say, hey, let me help you with this more technical process, or let me help you with social media or exploring things on our website, and you can give me some product knowledge or kind of help me out with some design elements. So finding creative ways for people to work together has been successful for us, but you've got to do it with the right people, and you've got to get the person that wants to grow and that wants to help someone else matched up with somebody who's going to be receptive to that.
Matt, any final thoughts on that? I see you nodding, so I want to give you an opportunity as well.
I agree with everything they said. I think as humans, what I have found is that we want to help other people. Like you said a few minutes ago, we want to give our opinion. We like options. You know, that's just who we are, whether we've been in the industry for one day or for 20 years. And I think that the help and the mentor factor that both of them have talked about are probably the keys to this, is to put them in that mind frame of help.
And I'll just tell you this too, you know, talking about a second ago, or at the beginning of this actually, Rob, Matt, when you talked about raving fans, you know, there's a lot of buyers like myself and my wife who are fiercely loyal when treated well. When we're treated well, man, we will go out of our way to go back to that place. We'll go out of our way to recommend that place in any business. And man, referrals are so powerful. So all of this connecting we're talking about and training your sales team is to recognize this, and not just that it be one transaction at a time, whether they've been consultative or not, but just thinking about laying that groundwork. I want to mention, by the way, I mentioned off the top, but I am super excited about this and super proud of it. But I want to mention that we now have an HFA Sales Academy, and there are going to be so many opportunities for all of you to take advantage of this. And Rob and Matt are those that lead this. And this is all about what you're seeing here: boosting your sales, talking about customer engagement, motivating your sales team, building that loyalty, all the things we've talked about today. We now have www.hfasalesacademy.com. Super excited about this because there's nothing more important, let's face it, than how we treat customers coming in the door. So I wanted to mention to you all about that. And I also want to just say this, and I do not say this after every webinar, but I'm going to say it for this one. For those of you listening to this, make sure that your sales leaders sit down and if they want to eat this elephant 15 minutes at a time, that's great. But this, to me, this hour is a must see for your stores, your sales leaders to look at, because the takeaways today are just far too many for even us to just mention and write down. I think this would be a great tool. So I'm doing a shameless plug there, but I think that's important because we were blessed today to have three phenomenal sales leaders here: Rob Ball, Matt Pridemore of Badcock. You're both franchisees, but also, of course, a big part now of HFA with their Sales Academy. I thank you so much. And Sydney Harris, I don't know what to say other than the fact that everybody today understands why this past year, a year or so, 2 years ago now, that you were HFA's emerging star as part of our Retailer of the Year. Every time you open your mouth and you do anything with us, it is so obvious what a phenomenal young leader you are in this industry. So I always happy to have you here. So I want to thank the three of you, and I also want to mention to everybody, we always wish you two things: good health, and especially after the conversation today, great sales. Go out there, motivate your teams, build the trust, and kill it. On behalf of everybody here at HFA, I'm Mark Schumacher. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.